The Marinade.
There's no O in Marinade. Let's try it one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
The Marinade.
Marinade.
Bone Marinade. The
That's
Marinade.
The Marinade. With Jason Earle. Welcome to The Marinade with Jason Earle, a free-flowing conversation about the creative process with creative people. This is episode 118, and our guest is Isaac Gibson. Isaac is the principal songwriter and lead singer for the band 49 Winchester. The band's unique brand of country music has taken them to the Ryman stage, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, in front of growing crowds and beyond. Rolling Stone has described Gibson as possessing a chill-inducing howl that's not far off from Chris Stapleton's. Yo, the opportunities and hype are well deserved. This band is for real. 49 Winchester's latest record is called Fortune Favors the Bold, and you will no doubt find it on plenty of 2022 year-end lists for very good reason. We caught up with Isaac via Zoom while he was off the road and back home in Virginia. It is my great pleasure, everyone, to bring you my conversation with Isaac Gibson.
To a guy like me that ain't never had nothing but a dream and a guitar, and this road dog itch that won't quit bothering me. Oh, packed into this van.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, dude. How's it going? Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, man. My pleasure. Let me see if I can get the audio right here.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yep, I think I got you just right. Awesome. Dude, I really appreciate this.
Nice.
I'm relatively new to your music, and it's y'all are one of those bands that like everybody goes, oh man, you got to check out 49 Winchester. Oh man, you got to check them out, and it's on my list of things to do a deep dive on, and then I saw a post on Twitter where somebody had bought one of your hats and it didn't fit them, and so they were trying to give this hat away. They were just like, it's a great hat, but it just doesn't fit me, and so I want to give it away. And it was made by Dome Hats out of Jacksonville, Florida, and I was like, oh shit. All right, this is my perfect excuse to do the deep dive. And so I was like, all right, no more putting this off. I'm going to do my deep dive. So I jumped in and I started with the new record, and I was just like, God damn, this is fresh. It feels so good. It's just great songwriting, and I love your voice. And it's just like, man, it takes me back home. It makes me feel like growing up, listening to, especially like the first time that my dad introduced me to Waylon Jennings. Like that was the first thing that came to mind to me, was like that feeling, you know what I mean? Maybe not the exact same sound, but that feeling, right? So thank you for this incredible record, and I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Man, I'm curious just to kind of zoom out a little bit and talk process generally, and then kind of maybe drill down a little bit more. What does the writing process look like for you? Are you a sit down, do the work every day kind of guy? What does it look like?
No, I'm kind of the opposite, really. I've never really had much of a dedicated writing process. It's always been something that's sort of just, songs kind of hit me like a bolt of lightning. When they're good, they write themselves really quickly. And I'm just I always just sort of feel like I'm the vessel in between once they come, because when they come, they almost just sort of, I don't know, it's almost like vomiting them out in a way. They just kind of pour out. I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure how that is, but that's always been the way I've written songs. They usually, I'll have an idea for maybe the first line of a chorus, or maybe I've got an idea for a melody that starts the song, or maybe I've got an idea for a verse or whatever it is, and it'll just usually expand from there. And it's usually pretty rapid if they're any good. Most of the best songs, the songs that I feel like are the best songs that I've written, yeah, that's how they came about, man. Just kind of strike me like a bolt of lightning out of nowhere.
All right, that kind of guides me
I
to.
really admire I
Yeah,
really
go ahead.
admire people that do have a dedicated writing process. People that'll sit down for an hour a day or 30 minutes a day even or longer and sit down and cultivate and hone their craft. But I've always just kind of been a if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of guy, and that's just sort of how my process is. So
Yeah, well, it definitely ain't broke. I like so I'm all right. So that maybe takes me to a kind of deeper place than I expected to go right off the bats, but I'm totally comfortable getting there because one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was as I'm doing this research, as I'm listening to these songs, as I'm spending time with these records, there's almost something like uh there's like this an improbability to your existence and your rise as a band as I see it from the outside. You guys are all from the same place. You're from a tiny little place at that. Your band is named after the address where you grew up and kind of formed together, and it's the perfect fucking name for a band and it fits you all so perfectly. Clearly when you listen to these records the chemistry is there. You're writing songs like a bolt of lightning. You how, all of that just seems like almost too good to be true, right? It's like is do you do you think there's something like magical or cosmic happening there? Do you believe in that kind of thing, that sort of
I mean,
things are meant to be?
I felt like that from the beginning. We've been big on going with our gut. We've had a lot of really great things. Um, I can't say fall into our lap because it's that sort of demeans all the work that we put into it. But we've had some really good things um, come into place for us really easily that have added up to a lot of that success. Like finding New West. We weren't shopping the record around. We were going to release this record independently. We had all intentions of doing that until the perfect record label for 49 Winchester came knocking on the door. Same thing with our agent and our management team and everybody. Everything has always felt like it was meant to be. So we just keep following that gut instinct, man, and good things are happening because of it.
Man, that's great. Well, it sounds like the hard work also, and this came out in the research getting ready for this too. The hard work and the hardworking kind of ethos, not just the fact that you're doing the work, but that you kind of, it seems to be at the core of what you do as a band and the music that you make. That the BJ Barham line that the harder you work, the luckier you get kind of thing comes to mind.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. I feel that way. We have from day one. I mean, that's always been our way of handling business. Is we it's a very blue collar approach. Put your hard hat on. It's time to go to work. You know what I mean? Whether it's a day of a live show or a day in the studio or whatever it might be, we take a very workmanlike kind of approach to it, I think. And I think that's just a product of where we're from. You know what I mean? We come from a place where there's not a whole lot of uh, economic opportunity. There's not a whole lot of advantage or privilege economically that people have in this part of the world. And you got to get out there and bust your ass and take a big swing at it to really make anything happen where we're from. And we knew that from the jump. We knew that we weren't going to immediately go, hey, let's all quit our jobs and move to Nashville next week and try to get this thing off the ground. We knew that it was going to be a slow burn, and we knew that we were going to be based out of right here in Russell County, Virginia, the heart of Appalachia, right in the dead middle, the middle of nowhere. We're 150 miles away from any real populace at all. Knoxville, Roanoke, that's really the closest two cities. We knew it would have its own unique limitations and its own unique advantages. And I think the great advantage to it is that it's kept us in touch with who we are. It's kept us genuine. It's kept us fresh and continuing to be ourselves. And that's really important to me too.
Man, that's wonderful. And I'm interested in that place, and I'm interested in place all in general, and then the impact that place has on creativity, that place in general has on creativity. Were you growing up? I've read a couple of interesting anecdotes about I saw you playing a video of you playing Lyle Lovett's "If I Had a Boat," which is one of my favorites of his, and a song that has been in my life for so long. And then a story you told about I think it was your dad having a VHS tape of Travis Tritt, Marty Stewart, and Hank Jr. doing Eyes of Waylon at the Opry.
That was Tim.
Oh, okay.
or
It wasn't you.
piano
Okay.
player.
All
Yeah.
right. All right. Well,
Same deal though. I mean, go ahead.
well, I'm wondering about what it's like around you. Like, are you growing up with folks around you introducing you to music? Did you have that influence? Were there records laying around?
Yeah.
What is that? What was that
Yeah,
like?
for sure. That was, I grew up in a time where the vast majority of the music that I've consumed has been via the internet. So my parents were not really like, avid record collectors or my mom always loved music. My mom's a great singer, but my dad's side of the family really has no musical background at all. Nobody plays, nobody sings. But I grew up listening to a lot of different types of music that was sort of um, brought into my life through, people who were close to me, my sister, my parents, just not as much of it in the home as much. I don't remember really just sitting around hearing a lot of music at home, even though now at my parents' house there's music on constantly. But growing up, it was mostly me hunkered down in my room, discovering things on my own. And I think that that's and there's a lot of those different avenues of influence that we've incorporated in our music. You know what I mean? I mean, we grew up, we went through metalhead phases. We went through,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a punk rocker phase. We went through, I mean, we're kids that were born in the mid 90s. We all went through the same kind of phases and listened to a lot of the same music. And that stuff still has an influence on what we do today, even though we're a country band. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a wonderful I actually just tweeted about it. There's a wonderful interview that Chip Midnight did with you for the big takeover where you talked about, you kind of mused like maybe a sludgy southern stoner record, as you put it.
Yeah.
Just seems like it would be so much damn fun, man. Anytime those worlds collide, like
Yeah, man.
I love that, especially as somebody who also grew up in the 90s on grunge and country. Like anytime those worlds collide, like I used to love the T. Hardy Morris project, Dead Confederate. Man, that shit, it was just like, this is country music, but it's grunge and it's southern and it feels just like, oh, this
Yeah,
is
man.
everything I grew up on, you know?
Sure.
Is there a notebook full of like Isaac's ideas about what a sludgy southern stoner record would look like? Have you made any attempt at this?
Not any like finite concrete plans. We've our usually if we get together and rehearse, somebody winds up turning the amps way up somewhere in the latter third or quarter of practice, and we wind up in some kind of big slow minor key sludgy thick southern fried heavy metal jam. But
Oh my God, I want this to happen so bad, man. That sounds
well,
absolutely incredible.
I mean, it's this, it's all a part of letting. We've always been attracted to country bands and always wanted to be a country band that had a little more than just country music to it. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. I've always
Sure.
loved country artists that were able to blend other influences in, and that's what we do still today. So, yeah, man. Who knows? Maybe the sixth or seventh record might have some Laney amps and Gibson Explorers or something.
Yeah, well, I think, I don't want to get too deep into the genre weeds, but I do think the new record feels more country to me than the other stuff. If it feels like more like a country record, I don't know if that's intentional or if you see that
Sure.
too, but it does feel more like that. And like I said, it harkens back to a lot of things that first caught my attention when I was kind of coming of age and learning who I was as a person, and that being informed by the music that I was consuming. I think that's why I connected to this record, Fortune Favors the Bold. And I think that's why a lot of folks connect to it. Not just folks of a certain age, but that it feels like the kind of country music I want to hear. Like, y'all should be the biggest country band in the world, that feel like y'all should be blowing up country radio. That kind of feeling is how I felt about the music. So
that's a great thing, man. I love when people can hear what we're doing and latch on to it and see that it's different and admire it in that way and say, man, this is fresh and new, and this is what I want to hear. So yeah, man, thanks. We appreciate it.
For sure. Y'all have kind of like exploded to some extent. I mean, you've been doing this a while, so maybe it doesn't feel like that to you, but in terms of like the crowds that you're drawing, the kind of bills you're on. I mean, you're playing with some really big name bands. How comfortable are you with that rise and with how things are going in terms of like, playing bigger and bigger rooms? Obviously you want to be successful, but how does it feel
Sure.
for you?
I mean, it feels great. It feels like it has come along at the right time. You know what I mean? Like I don't know that we um again, I just feel like it's meant to be. We've all matured a lot in the last, 9 years of doing this. We've been doing this since we graduated high school. So it's 9 years this fall.
Wow.
We feel like we've matured a lot. We've grown a lot. We're able to handle this success and this little uptick of stardom that we've started to see. We're able to handle it better, I think, and appreciate it more than we would have had we gotten that jump right off the bat. So to finally feel it all come together and see the fruits of your labor really, in a tangible way, it's amazing, man. It's been a great year. 23 is looking even better. Got a lot of big announcements for 23 coming pretty soon. So
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. You can't tease any of those here exclusively on the Marinade, can you?
Right. Well, I can tease them, but I'm not sure how much teasing I can do.
All right.
I'm not sure how in depth I can go, but it's in the coming months or so, there'll be some cool stuff come out for sure.
That's awesome, man. I'm so happy for y'all. Okay, so really interesting thing you brought up there, and that is the idea that you've been doing this since you graduated from high school. That period of life, when I look back on that period in my life, it is a period of profound growth and intense changes. The person I was from the time I graduated from high school to that whole decade is just it's a blur looking back on it, but it so much happened and so much changed in my life. Friends that I was close with, we fell apart. I made new relationships. Those ended.
Sure.
How do you guys are you able to process y'all staying together, not only staying together, but staying together as a band, continuing to grow creatively? Are you able to kind of keep that in perspective?
Yeah, I think that through all the growth and change that's taken place since our start, the one thing that we've been able to keep constant and rely on has been this band. So we've let all of those changes and all of those we let all those changes shine through in what we do on stage and who we are as people now, if you meet us backstage or you meet us wherever. So yeah, man, I mean, it's an age, I think, in most people's lives when there's a lot of like you said, a lot of intense change and shifting of things. And we've all lived through that since we've joined this band. And the one thing that's really, I think, kept us glued together through all of it has been each other, which is cool. So it's good to have a group of guys like this to play with. It's a rarity, and I see now that I've been in the business for this many years that it's a very uncommon thing to get a group of guys with this much admiration and desire to help and support one another. People that really care about each other. We all go to bat for each other in every sense of the word, and we always have since day one. So I think throughout all the changes and the twists and turns, man, 49's been, how we've sort of coped with it.
That's so wonderful. Have you learned any lessons about maintaining relationships and how to sort of nurture those relationships in that time with the band?
Oh yeah, certainly. I feel like when we started, I mean, I don't feel like it, I know it. When we started this band, we were kids. I mean, we really were. We were vagrant, transient kids that would sleep on any couch that we could find. We partied quite a bit. We stayed up many nights till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning doing stuff we shouldn't do and playing guitars by a campfire or a wood stove or a coffee table. And a lot has changed for sure. We've grown up a lot. We've all, now 2 of us have children in the band. So I mean, this has grown into 49 itself has grown into something that's even more important now than it ever was, because it's now how we feed our families, and it's how we, hopefully are going to send our children to college one day and our grandchildren. We want that. So couldn't ask for a better group of guys to do it with.
Man, the cliche of the rock star who settles down, and gets married, has kids, the folks who get sober, and like, people complaining about them not making as good of an art is just so ridiculous to me. Because it seemed, in my experience, especially with the kind of people that I talk to, it's the exact opposite, where the records get better once they get more grounded. Once the kid's there,
Sure.
I mean, I could rattle off dozens of people who were making good music before, but once they got that grounding, and I've seen it in my own life and my own creativity, like as my life becomes more grounded, to me, it just takes out a variable, like there's this wild card that was in the way before of me getting shit done that it isn't there anymore. And I'm much more able to get things done, and my head's clear because I have more sense of a purpose,
Sure. Absolutely. That's a great point. The more purpose that you have, the more responsibility that you have, the more you want to fight for something like this, because it's a really cool way to make a living, man. It really is. We know how lucky we are to be able to do this and pay our bills by sharing songs with people. And we're looking forward to, making a whole lot more of it. So
yeah, that's great, man. So, okay. So looking back at it so far, you got a lot left in you, but looking back at it so far, this whole 49
sorry about
thing.
that. You'll have to run that back by me. You broke up a little bit.
Oh, okay. Do you have me now? Am I coming through clear? Oh, now you're frozen.
Are you back? I can hear you.
Yeah, I got you now. You got me?
Yep, I think so.
Okay. All right, cool. So I was saying, looking back at the whole 49 thing so far, you got a lot left in you, but at this point in the band's career, if somebody was making a documentary about 49 Winchester, what are 2 or 3 scenes that would need to be in there to tell the story of the band?
I mean, if I think about it in that way, I would have to think about the big high points is what I would love to see the most. The big moments of that felt like enormous wind in our sails, which we've had a lot of this year. It's felt like
Yeah.
the first 8 or 9 years feel like they might be 30 minutes of that documentary, and this last year could take up 4 or 5 hours.
Maybe
Seems
just
like
make
we get cool news every other day.
Just make a 1 year in 49's life documentary instead.
Highlight tape. Man, I think that when I think about moments that solidified us as a band that was doing something great, and big groups of people acknowledging it, I think that Floyd Fest last year felt like kind of a breakout moment for us that led to a lot of wind in our sails. And I think that a year later, Floyd Fest again, those were times that were very emotional and very satisfying, and I wish I could relive them.
Oh, dude, you froze on me there for a little while, and then at the end you're saying very emotional, and I'm like, damn it, what did he supposed to be saying?
Very emotional. I said very, very emotional and very satisfying, and I wish I could relive them. So,
well, I know, but what I missed the moments that you froze during
oh, did you?
Yeah.
Goodness.
So you're talking about Floyd Fest.
Yeah, Floyd Fest last year. It felt like a kind of coming of age thing. Crowds were big, crowds were loud. It felt like what we had been working towards. Bristol Rhythm and Roots this past year was a really, really big one.
I gotta make it up there.
5 or 6 or 7,000 people on State Street stage, just raging. It was a lot of fun. And our Opry and Ryman both were big ones for us that really it just made us feel like they'd finally let us in. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
And that's cool, because there's a door that you have to. There's a door in front of you as a band the whole time that you're in your formative years, and sometimes somebody opens it and you walk through, and sometimes you just got to kick the sumbitch in. And I felt like we had done one of the two with those moments. So
Oh, I think that's so beautiful, man. I mean, the Ryman has to be. I
Oh, it's crazy.
just going there was like the coolest thing for
Yeah,
me, and just I can only imagine what you felt like up on that stage.
it was unbelievable. Um, the Ryman was really cool because it was our first show with Turnpike, which is a big deal. I mean,
Mhm.
Turnpike is they're legends, you know what I mean, at this point now.
Yeah.
And they do it right. They play great country music and they bring a great fan base out wherever they come.
Mhm.
And to see their fan base admire what we were doing so much was a big honor, especially at a place like the Ryman, where you're going to come out and deliver. You know it's going to sound great. You know your mix on stage is great. You know everything's going to be cool. It was a lot of fun, man. And then we got a double standing ovation at that set, which was another kind of cool moment that sort of took my breath away. I think it was partially because the LD kind of lit up part of the crowd a little bit early, and they were like, "Oh, that's the end of the set." But I'll take it, man. Double standing O, I'll take it.
That's incredible. You can't ask for
It
much
was
more than
awesome.
that, right? Like,
Yeah,
oh, oh my
it was a really
God,
cool night. And
dude.
then the Opry was even cooler. If I had to say, I mean, it was just the whole Opry experience is it's pretty unbelievable. It's kind of the Disney World of country music, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you go there and you get to see, except instead of Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, it's Vince Gill and Randy Travis. You know what I mean? It was pretty cool. Vince was the first guy I saw when I got off stage. Got to shake his hand. He said we sounded good.
Awesome.
I just kind of stood there with my jaw open and probably looked like a moron. But maybe next time I meet him, I'll get a chance to say some actual words. Uh, Met Randy that night. That was unbelievable. It was just like, I mean, it was like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
It's like a dream. It really is. So it was a great night for 49. Got to shout my dad out on the mic, who has been with us from day one. Dad
Cool.
drives for us and sells merch every night, and has never missed a show. 9 years.
Dude,
So
what a
got
gift
to
that
holler at him.
is.
Yeah, he's the seventh man. He always has been. He's been there since day one.
Oh my gosh. That's special, man. That's
Yep.
really, really, really cool. Okay, so kind of backing up, you mentioned dad. Like, at what point did you yourself know, like, because you have a special voice. You have a voice that cuts above the noise. You know, it's remarked about quite a bit in pieces written about the band. At what point did you know you could sing? And also, all right, maybe I got kind of a special thing here.
I mean, I guess it was the first time that I ever sang. I just said this earlier today, actually, in an interview with our local paper. The first time that I ever sang in front of people, besides my bandmates, was the first 49 Winchester show ever. That we had never. I was a in the locked away in my room kind of guitar player and singer all through high school. Never was in a band. Never played with anybody else really. Um, I was sort of reclusive about it. And most of my life growing up and even into my late teens after we'd started the band, 19 years old, 20 years old, I thought that more than likely I was going to be a carpenter. I was going to do the same thing my family's done for 5 generations here in Russell County, Virginia.
Hmm.
Uh, but I think there was a point when, I mean, people always are, if you're pretty talented, people will usually let you know that. They'll say, "Oh, you sing great, you got a great voice, you got this and that," and you just kind of take it with a grain of salt, and you don't really pay attention to them until some of the right people start to say it. And I think that when we started being when we started seeing ourselves coming up through the ranks of local bands, um and having other musicians sort of give us, you know uh, positive feedback. I think that's when I started to see it more than anything else, was just, other musicians that I at the time thought, "You're better than me. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
So it kind of took some doing for me to come into my own as a performer and as a singer. Definitely, I'm a different vocalist altogether now than I was when we made our first record. Um, but like I said, we were just kids then, man. That's all we had. It's all we knew. It was just us. pouring our hearts out, and that's still what we're doing today. We're just a lot better at it now.
Well, so when you say you're a different singer, like have you like taken lessons? Are you just growing as a
No,
person? Like what
I
led to
think
that?
part of it's just the physiology of your voice changing as you get older, and
Yeah.
you know, but most people don't sound exactly the same way when they're 19 as they do when they're 29. So
Sure.
a decade of singing a lot, a decade of a lot of practice, I guess, although no lessons or anything like that. Just a decade of doing it with the best practice there is, which is a live show. I think
Mm.
that's really what's done it. It's just sort of learning. Uh, I think I could have probably got a jump on the learning curve had I decided to do lessons and things like that. But those things are the things that they're going to teach in terms of vocal technique. I feel like now are things that have just kind of come to me naturally, and it's just sort of how to control my breath and how to sing from different places in the head or the diaphragm or all those things. So I think it's just something that's just come naturally to me instead of some real concerted effort to try to be a better singer.
Man, the more you talk, the more I think this whole thing is cosmically ordained in some way. Like, it really feels like some sort of fucking magic from the
I know, man.
cosmos.
It does. It really does. It feels like that a lot of days for us. It's a pretty cool thing to be a part of. It's always fun to be a part of something growing, but when you feel like you're a
Yeah.
part of something that that doesn't have a backstop, you know what I mean? When you feel like you're a part of something that can grow exponentially, it's even more fun. And we feel like that's what we're setting ourselves up to do is make a really big jump forward, doing it our way, which is important.
I love that, man. And it certainly from an outside perspective feels that way. And it's exciting. Like I said, I'm relatively new to diving into this thing, but I've been just pretty obsessively listening to your music for a couple months now, especially as I get ready for this. Um and it does feel like you have a special thing here, and it is going to continue to grow. When you come off the road, like especially now as things are starting to continuing to increase in terms of crowd size, and you've been touring quite a bit, are you able to decompress when you come off of something like that, or are you like antsy ready to get back up on stage? What does that look like?
I take great. I think that there's a whole lot of value in the time that I have at home to decompress, but I do find it hard to decompress, and probably harder now than I used to,
Mm,
because it's longer runs at longer distances with shorter rest in between before you're back out. And now I feel almost like I'm on go mode every day. You know what I mean?
mhm.
And we've hit our stride. You know what I mean? We feel like we finally hit our stride, and there's no real time to rest. So, um, but we do. I mean, we do all have different ways that we do use to decompress when we get home. It's just that there's not a whole lot of time to do it these days.
Mm.
We always take some time off uh, because I'm an avid deer hunter and fisherman. So I'll take some time off in the fall in October and November. I'll take some time off in the spring to capitalize on the white bass run at a Douglas Lake in Tennessee, and we go down there and waylay them every year. And but I mean, other than that, I mean, the outdoors is pretty much how I do it. I spend a lot of time at home, sitting on the couch with my pets and my girlfriend, or sitting in a deer stand. That's about all I ever do if I'm not playing music.
I love how like humble you are about your voice and your band, and then man, you're just like ready to jump into shit talking about bass fishing. You were like,
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. That was my first love. You know what I mean? I've always
yeah.
said and I'm constantly looking for opportunities to fish and hunt when we're out on the road.
Mm.
Um, so that was always, the outdoors was my first love. That's a great passion of mine that's a necessity in my happiness for sure.
Nice. Yeah. So I want to be respectful of your time, and I'm just so grateful for all of this that you've given me. We usually end on what you're getting down on, which is the art that has you inspired at the moment. It may be some music you've been listening to, or a TV show, or painting, or I don't know, book you've been reading. What have you been consuming lately?
And I've been listening to a lot. We were just talking about Vince Gill earlier, and I know this is a lot of his music now is 30 years old, but I've been kind of taking a little deeper spin into some of Vince Gill's catalog and some older country artists from the 90s and 80s mostly, which is an era of country music that I've been exposed to enough of it just as an element of pop culture to know a whole lot of it, but I haven't spent a whole lot of time with dedicated listening to it. My country music love has always been the 70s, the 60s and 70s. I was always a fan of older country stuff, but a lot of the stuff that some of these guys in the 80s and 90s were doing is really, really killer stuff with great writing and great guitar parts, especially from Vince. So a lot of Vince Gill lately, it seems like.
He's incredible. I got to see Sean Camp recently, and he plays Spirit of the Swanee Music Park. Gotta be fun to see all there. Spirit of the Swanee Music Park every year. And Sean's written so many legendary songs. And I was hoping to catch up with him, and it didn't work out, but I was doing some research just in case I got to. Went back and listened to some of his records, and it's just like hit after hit, man. I mean, just like, and they're great songs, just these wonderful songs. And some of them were on his records, and some of them other people cut, and they're just, just to this day, they hold up as really, really wonderful. So I can totally relate.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great thing. I think when songs are able to stand the test of time, that's a unique, whole different unique accolade to a songwriter, is to be able to write songs that translate, literally generation to generation. That's a special thing. It's I'm looking forward to seeing how people look at 49 songs in 25 or 30 years.
I would be shocked.
Or the music of any of our contemporaries.
Yeah,
Tyler Childers for that matter, or somebody like that. I'm anxious to see what because it's becoming a part of music now that's it kind of started as this renegade, outlaw, rebel, alt country revival thing, and now it's becoming culturally significant. It's that big. So I'm anxious to see what some of our legacies will be here a couple decades down the road.
I 100% agree with you that I think it's a special moment, and we're really fortunate to be living through it. And I'm really fortunate to be able to interview folks that are making this music. I truly believe Fortune Favors the Bold will be one of those records that people 10, 20 years from now are going to be talking about as, wow, this really holds up. This is great songwriting. These guys can play. Oh, it's got heart to it. It's got everything. It takes the simple and makes it and helps it to and dives deeper, but at the same time, sometimes there's some really heavy concepts that then are distilled down to easier, more digestible, which is I always want from music. I always wanted to take all this shit that's going on in here and in here, and then distill it down to something that makes me want to
make sense.
Yeah, make it make sense. And that's what this record does.
I appreciate it.
Man, I'm so grateful for your time. This was awesome.
Absolutely.
I really hope I get a chance to see you guys live. I missed you. I didn't get to make it to Americana Fest. I was supposed to get there and had family stuff, but one of these days soon, I want to catch y'all live. And I just, again, want to thank you for this record. I want to thank you for your time and energy here. And I'm really, really excited to see what the next steps are for you, because the future certainly seems incredibly bright. Thanks, man. Appreciate it big time. Thanks for your time today, Jason. Yeah, man. Have just a wonderful rest of your day, bud. Thank you, Isaac. Isaac Gibson, y'all. Thank you so much, Isaac. Thank all of you for listening. 49winchester.com for all things 49 Winchester. Fortune Favors the Bold is the latest release from them, and again, it is great. The song you're hearing in this episode is All I Need from that very album. MarinadePodcast.com for all things the Marinade, including written pieces, our photography, our online store, and so much more. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We're even on TikTok. Subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast app. Tell a friend about the show. These are all free ways to support the Marinade, and we're super grateful for each of those. Y'all, if you really like what we're doing, please consider joining our Patreon community, where for just a few bucks a month, you can gain access to Patreon exclusive content, like our show Jason's Journey, where I talk about the moments that shape my creative life and provide a window into the process of making the Marinade. I also post what I'm getting down on, which is an examination of the art that is inspiring me at the moment. We do that over on Patreon sometimes, and soon we're going to do this. We get together for Patreon happy hours on the old Zoom box, patreon.com/Marinade Podcast if you are interested. If you want to support the show financially, but you don't want to commit to a monthly subscription, I get that. You can Venmo or PayPal us at the Marinade. All the money goes right back into making the show. For example, we cover festivals. I want to give a huge plug, huge shout out to the Orange Blossom Review Festival in Lake Wales, Florida. Allison Russell's going to be there. Margot Price is going to be there. That's the first weekend in December. Last year, my great friend and collaborator, Jen Ross, and I went and had the time of our fucking lives, y'all. Just so many great artists. Lainey Jones, great friend of the show, is going to be playing. Kat Ridgway, great friend of the show, is going to be playing. The Wood Brothers. It is an incredible lineup, like ridiculous. And it's so well done. If you can't make it this year, mark your calendar for the first weekend in December next year. They treat you well. I mean, you know, I love every festival I've gotten to cover. No festival has treated press the way that festival does. Seriously. Like, shout out to Danielle, the publicist for the festival, and everybody who is involved with that organization. It's awesome. So if you can make it in December, if you're in Florida, no excuse. Make your plans. If you're not in Florida, look at maybe next year. You know, if you can't make it this year, they crushed it last year, and they're doing it again this year. So huge shout out to them. That's the kind of thing that we use the money for the Patreon, and from any tips that we get, that's where it goes. It goes to us, you know, getting down there, covering the festival, doing the work, producing content for y'all so you can feel like you're there if you're not there. We have so many other great things happening right now, and I'm so grateful for y'all. I just released my episode with Garrett T. Capps. We got Corey Brandon and Hayes Carl recorded and on the way. I got to catch up with those guys in person, and they're two of the best episodes we've ever done. Are you kidding me? Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate every single person who listens to this show, spreads the word, retweets, shares a story on Instagram. Whatever you can do, I really appreciate it. Thank you again and again. Until next time, go out and create something. Cheers, y'all.